The Luftwaffe pilot leaned against his Messerschmitt with arms crossed, watching the slow British biplanes lumber into the sky. A smirk played on his lips. These relics, wire-braced and outdated, were no threat. Just targets for sport, machines left behind by progress. But history has a way of laughing last. It was 1940. The Battle of Britain raged across the skies of Europe. The English Channel, a narrow strip of water, had become a lifeline and a battlefield. Above it, the Luftwaffe ruled with speed and firepower. Their fighters cut through the clouds with confidence. Their pilots believed the war in the air was already won. Yet beneath the white cliffs of Dover, a desperate plan began to take shape. Britain was running out of options. Modern aircraft were stretched thin, losses mounted. What remained was something the Germans had already dismissed: the swordfish. Slow, vulnerable, outdated. It was all the British had left. German intelligence reports were confident and clear. The swordfish was useless, too slow to survive, too weak to matter. A relic from another era. The Luftwaffe had won the skies and soon would control the seas. What could a few fabric-winged biplanes possibly do? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected. What the Germans failed to see, the British understood well. The swordfish was never meant to fight speed with speed. It flew low, too low for radar. It moved slowly enough to slip beneath expectations. In the hands of skilled pilots, its weakness became its disguise. And the Luftwaffe's greatest strength, arrogance, became its blind spot. As dawn approached, engines coughed to life. The swordfish began their slow climb into the sky. Their engines growled steadily without urgency. Nothing about them suggested danger. German radar stations detected faint blips moving lazily across their screens. They were dismissed, too slow to matter. The real threat was believed to be higher, faster, farther away. By the time anyone looked down, it was already too late. The first German ship spotted the incoming biplanes. Laughter broke out on deck. Some pointed. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Biplanes were a joke. Flying museums. Targets. Then the torpedoes struck the water. The laughter vanished. Metal screamed. Hulls shuddered. In seconds, disbelief turned into panic. The Luftwaffe learned a brutal lesson. Underestimation is often the deadliest weapon of all. The attack sent shockwaves through German naval operations. Ships were damaged. Confidence cracked. Plans unraveled. The swordfish, written off as obsolete, had struck where it hurt most. Slowly, the tide of the Battle of Britain began to shift. Not through speed or power, but through surprise. The swordfish proved that war is not won by speed alone. It is won by patience, by adaptability, and by striking where the enemy least expects. On that day, the Luftwaffe laughed at the wrong plane. Above the Channel, German pilots circled their fighters, confident and relaxed. Laughter crackled through their radios as they looked down at the biplanes below. Slow, outdated, harmless. They mocked them openly, but British pilots knew the truth. These aircraft carried torpedoes, and the fleet below was exposed. November 1940. The Mediterranean. The Italian fleet, reinforced by German warships, dominated the waters. Britain needed a decisive blow to break their power. Modern aircraft were unavailable. Once again, the swordfish was chosen. Its top speed barely reached 138 miles per hour. The Luftwaffe dismissed it instantly. They would regret that mistake. German commanders believed speed and firepower would decide every battle. Their defenses were designed for fast, modern attackers. Anti-aircraft guns were calibrated for speed. Radar was tuned for altitude. The swordfish fit none of those expectations. It flew slow and low. It was invisible in plain sight. Swordfish pilots exploited every weakness. Their aircraft skimmed the waves. Shells burst harmlessly above them. Their torpedoes dropped with deadly accuracy. Guns fired wildly, missing targets that moved too slowly to predict. Confusion spread across the fleet. One swordfish was hit directly. Flames engulfed its wings. The pilot did not turn away. He held course long enough to release his torpedo. Moments later, the aircraft vanished into the sea. The explosion that followed tore through a cruiser. Sacrifice reshaped the battle. German commanders shouted orders into radios already overwhelmed by chaos. It made no difference. The swordfish withdrew calmly, their mission complete. Luftwaffe fighters arrived late to find burning ships and rising smoke. Mockery had turned into fury. The British pilots returned home as heroes. The raid had crippled the German-Italian fleet and forced a strategic retreat. The swordfish, once dismissed, proved that courage and cunning could defy modern power. In Berlin, the High Command stared at the reports in stunned silence. Overconfidence had revealed a fatal flaw. The biplane, once forgotten, had earned its place in history. The Luftwaffe had laughed at slow aircraft, at outdated design, at the idea that such machines could threaten dominance. But laughter fades quickly when the joke turns deadly. Messerschmitts ruled the skies, U-boats ruled the seas, yet, in the shadows, Britain prepared weapons the enemy had already ignored. The swordfish was never fast. It was never modern, but it was precise. German pilots trained for dogfights, for high-altitude duels. Fabric wings inspired no fear. That was their mistake. Radar operators ignored slow blips. The swordfish flew unseen, unheard, and unchallenged. At dawn, convoys spotted them. Laughter erupted. Moments later, torpedoes struck. Silence followed. Explosions ripped through steel. Fires spread. Ships listed and sank. The swordfish returned again and again. The Luftwaffe could only watch. The aftermath was undeniable. Ships destroyed, confidence shattered. The deadliest weapon is often the one you never see coming. Again the Luftwaffe laughed when slow biplanes appeared. Again horror followed. Destroyers burned. Guns fired into empty sky. Panic spread through ranks trained to feel superior. Orders failed. The channel was no longer safe. The pilots returned as heroes. Obsolete planes defied impossible odds. Across Britain, hope returned. In Berlin, defenses were rewritten. Radar expanded. Guns repositioned. The war changed. The swordfish became legend, a warning carved into history. Never underestimate the enemy you dismiss. War delivered its lesson clearly. Speed alone does not win wars. Daring does. Surprise does. As the last swordfish vanished into the dawn, the lesson remained. The greatest danger is not the enemy you fear. It is the one you laugh at. The Luftwaffe never laughed at the swordfish again.